I was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window of my Denver apartment, the city lights flickering like tiny, restless fireflies, when my phone buzzed against the marble countertop. I remember the exact feeling, the soft slide of my silk blouse against my skin as I turned, the faint scent of my vanilla lotion rising with the movement, and the sudden tightness in my chest that came before I even looked at the screen. My father's name was glowing on the display. I hadn't seen it in years. Not since the last words he threw at me on that family trip. If you want to be taken seriously, Ava, prove yourself. I did prove myself. Just not in the way he expected. I let the phone ring for a moment, the vibration humming through the countertop like a warning. Outside, headlights streaked across the night, and my reflection stared back at me. Older, steadier, someone I built from scratch. My hair was pulled into a low, clean bun, my nails a soft mauve, slightly chipped at the edges from a week of non-stop work. Behind me, my office corner glowed softly. Sleek laptop, thick files, a framed contract from a client who once told me I'd change her life. I had kept all of this hidden from my family. Not out of spite, out of survival. The phone stopped. A second later, a message appeared. "We're in town. We need to see you." My heartbeat stuttered. I wasn't the girl who begged for their approval anymore. But old wounds have their own pulse, don't they? I took a slow breath and whispered to myself, "You wanted me to prove myself. Now you'll see exactly how I did." The last time I saw my father up close, we were standing outside a dusty roadside gas station in Utah during what was supposed to be a bonding family trip. I was 21, freshly heartbroken from dropping out of a college major he chose for me, and still stupidly hopeful that the four of us being trapped in a rental SUV would magically heal years of tension. It didn't. I remember the heat first. That kind of sharp desert heat that dries your lips, curls your hair, and makes every emotion feel louder. My hands were shaking as I held a bottle of water, the condensation slipping through my fingers. My mother hovered by the car, pretending not to hear anything. My younger brother shoved his earbuds in, creating his own escape. But I had nowhere to escape to. My dad stood there with his arms crossed, sunglasses reflecting back a distorted version of me, messy hair, tired eyes, a girl who hadn't learned to fight for herself yet. "You're not serious about anything, Ava," he said, voice low, controlled. "Not school. Not your future. Not your life. If you want us to treat you like an adult, then prove yourself." The words landed like a slap. I felt that sting travel straight through my bones. I swallowed hard, the lump rising in my throat making it painful to breathe. I tried to speak, tried to defend myself, but my voice trembled, betraying me. The water bottle crumpled in my fist, my palms sweaty and cold at the same time. He sighed, already dismissing me, already turning away. It was at that moment I noticed the bracelet on my wrist, thin, silver, with a tiny engraved feather. A gift from my grandmother, the only person who ever saw me clearly. "A feather means flight," she'd said when she clasped it around my wrist. "Not escape. Freedom." I rubbed my thumb across the cool metal, grounding myself in her voice instead of his. And something inside me shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. Maybe I didn't need to scream to be heard. Maybe I just needed to leave. That night, in the dim light of the motel room, while my family slept on creaky beds and the air conditioner rattled like it was coughing, I made my decision. I packed my small duffel quietly, folded my grandmother's note into my wallet, and slipped outside. The desert air was cold now, brushing against my cheeks like a blessing or a warning. I wasn't sure yet, but I knew this. I didn't have to prove myself to him. I had to prove myself to me, and that meant walking away. When I left that motel parking lot in Utah, the sky was only beginning to lighten, a pale strip of lavender stretching over the desert. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have money beyond what was in my wallet. And I didn't have anyone cheering me on. What I did have was the silver feather bracelet on my wrist and the unbearable knowledge that staying would break me in ways I might never recover from. I took the first bus headed east. For the next 2 days, I sat wedged between strangers, clutching my backpack like a lifeline. My eyelids burned from exhaustion, but every time I closed them, I heard my dad's voice echoing. Prove yourself. By the time I reached Denver, something inside me had hardened. Not angrily, just enough to keep me upright. I found a cheap room to rent from an older woman named Maya Thompson, a retired business consultant with sharp eyes and a soft heart. The kind of woman who could read your entire life with one glance. She noticed how quiet I was, how carefully I hid my shaking hands, and she didn't pry. She simply said, "Stay as long as you need, but make the stay worth something." I didn't know it then, but Maya would become the first mentor I ever had. The struggle. My early days were a blur of survival. Working double shifts at a tiny cafe that smelled permanently of burned espresso. Walking home in shoes that blistered my heels. Crying quietly in my rented room because the world was too big and I felt too small. I watched other women come in for morning coffee, polished, confident, carrying sleek laptops and speaking in soft, decisive tones. Something inside me sparked. I wanted to be one of them. When Maya saw me browsing job listings one night, she pulled out a dusty laptop and slid it across the table. "You're smart," she said plainly. "You just need skills that open doors." She signed me up for online classes in digital marketing, branding, and copywriting. It was overwhelming at first, and I nearly quit more times than I can admit. But Maya didn't let me. She nudged. She pushed. She corrected my posture when I slouched. "You're allowed to take space in this world, Ava," she'd say. "No one's going to hand you a chair. You pull it up yourself." Small wins. My first win came 6 months later. A local boutique paid me $75 to redesign their flyer. Then a small business hired me to manage their social posts. Then another. Each time I got paid, I saved half. My bank account grew slowly, but my confidence grew faster. There were long nights. Nights when my mascara was smudged from rubbing my tired eyes. Nights when I questioned every decision I'd made. But there were also moments when a client wrote, "You really nailed this," and I would feel my heart lift. I didn't tell my family any of it. My social media showed nothing more than sunsets, coffee mugs, and the occasional book photo. Success was still fragile then, and I protected it like a flame cupped in both hands. What my father didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the girl who left Utah with a duffel bag was quietly building a life better than anything they ever imagined for her. I wasn't just proving myself anymore. I was becoming someone they'd never thought I could be. It was a rainy Thursday when my father and the rest of my family unexpectedly drove into Denver. The city streets gleamed with reflected neon and wet asphalt, the kind of night that made everything look cinematic. I had just finished a client meeting, my laptop closed, the faint aroma of black coffee still lingering on my desk. Then came the text, "We're outside. Can we come in?" I paused. My heartbeat thudded, not with fear, but with the calm calculation that had taken years to cultivate. My family expected a struggling 20-something still figuring life out. What they weren't prepared for was me. I opened the door myself. My father's face tightened the moment he saw me. Not with anger. Not exactly with pride. But there was a flicker of something disbelief. My mother, ever the gentle mediator, tried a soft, "Ava, but stopped. My younger brother leaned against the doorway, earbuds still dangling, clearly confused. I led them into the apartment. The space was nothing like the cramped motel room they remembered me in. The furniture was minimalist, yet inviting, the walls adorned with abstract art I had collected over the years. A sleek desk in the corner held my laptop and a framed certificate. Top 10 Digital Marketers, Denver 2024. The shelves carried not only awards but carefully curated books on business, psychology, and personal growth. Small plants softened the edges, a quiet reflection of me. I waited, letting the silence do the work. My father's eyes roamed the room, settling on objects he couldn't possibly have imagined I would own. Finally, I spoke. My voice calm but firm, each word deliberate. "Remember that family trip in Utah? You told me to prove myself." Well, I did. I motioned toward the desk. "I own my own company now. We manage digital campaigns for top brands. My net worth exceeds anything you probably imagined. And I did it without needing anyone to believe in me, except for myself and Maya, my mentor. The room froze. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My brother blinked rapidly, clearly processing that the cousin who had complained about homework now out-earned everyone they knew. My father's jaw clenched. Disbelief etched into every line of his face. For years, he had reduced me to a girl who couldn't keep up. Now, he was staring at a woman who had not only kept up but surpassed every expectation, his included. You left us?" His voice cracked, a mix of shame and anger. But underneath it, there was something else, a strange, unfamiliar respect. "Yes," I said, letting the word hang in the room. "I left. Not because I didn't care, but because I had to care about myself first. I walked away, built my life, and now you're seeing the result." The tension was palpable. My mother tried to interject, but I raised a hand politely. "I'm not here to argue or rehash the past. I'm here to show you that the girl you dismissed, the one you told to prove herself, she did. And she didn't need your approval to do it." I watched the weight of realization settle on them. Faces pale, eyes wide, silent acknowledgement that they had underestimated me. For the first time, I felt that quiet, powerful satisfaction, the satisfaction of proving myself on my own terms, not someone else's. The room was thick with tension, the kind that only comes when the past meets the present in full force. My father's eyes darted around, catching on each carefully chosen detail of my space, yet avoiding my gaze. My mother fidgeted, fingers twisting the hem of her sweater, and my younger brother just stood there, a mixture of awe and confusion painted across his face. I took a slow, deliberate breath. My voice was calm, even, but edged with the authority I had earned over years of struggle. "You want to be part of my life now," I said. "But it's not the same as it was before. Things have changed. I have changed. And so must you if you want a place here." My father's mouth opened and closed, as if searching for the right words, but I continued, unfazed. "First," I said, turning slightly toward him, "you need to acknowledge that dismissing me didn't help anyone. Not you, not me, not our family. You will learn to respect my boundaries, my choices, and my accomplishments without judgment. I won't tolerate belittling, condescension, or unsolicited advice about my life anymore." My mother blinked, tears threatening, but she nodded. She understood. Second, I addressed my brother, trying to soften my tone while remaining firm. "You have potential too, but you can't ride on excuses or comfort zones. You must pursue something meaningful for yourself, not just follow in footsteps that don't fit you. That includes effort, responsibility, and learning from mistakes." I turned back to my father. "Third," I said, a quiet steel underneath my calm, "you must confront the ways your own insecurities hurt the people you love. Therapy, reflection, accountability. I'm done carrying the weight of your expectations or resentment." There was silence after my words. You could hear it in the small clicks of the rain outside and the faint hum of the city below. The air was heavy, yet electric. Finally, I added, "I still care for you. I want a relationship, but it has to be real, honest, and grounded in mutual respect. If you can meet these conditions, we can rebuild. If not, we walk separately, with no regrets." I let that sink in. The room felt smaller now, but the power was mine. Not in the sense of revenge, but in clarity, self-respect, and ownership of my life. My father's hands flexed at his sides. My mother exhaled slowly. My brother tilted his head, absorbing the weight of what I'd said. None of them moved to argue. They had no choice, really. The girl they had underestimated was no longer a girl. I watched them carefully, reading every twitch, every flicker of guilt, shame, and maybe even pride. I smiled faintly, not in mockery, but as a signal of my compassion intertwined with firmness. "I'm offering a chance," I said softly, "but it's up to you to take it. Your past doesn't define you, but your willingness to grow does. And from here on, I decide the terms of my life. That's not arrogance. That's survival. That's growth. That's the woman I've become. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, not just from their judgment, but from the fear that had once shackled me. The power had shifted, and now it was time for them to prove themselves worthy of the second chance I was offering. Weeks passed after that day. The tension slowly melted into small, deliberate efforts on their part. My father began seeing a therapist, sending me brief messages about his sessions and reflections, carefully written, almost as if he were learning a new language, the language of accountability. My mother joined me for a weekend brunch, not as the mediator who smoothed over every conflict, but as a partner in dialogue, someone willing to speak honestly and listen fully. My brother started taking night classes in graphic design, sharing his projects with pride, a spark of ambition I hadn't seen before. I watched them grow, quietly from a distance first, then more openly. Each small success was a reminder that the choices I'd made, leaving, building, surviving, had ripple effects. Not just in my own life, but in theirs. One evening, I held my grandmother's silver feather bracelet in my hand, turning it over between my fingers. Its cool metal was familiar, grounding, and for a moment, I could almost hear her soft voice. Flight, not escape. I smiled. I had flown, yes, but I hadn't abandoned my roots. I had just learned how to return on my own terms. Sitting in my office, I reflected on the journey, the pain, the heartbreak, the nights I cried into my pillow because I thought I wasn't enough. Every struggle, every sleepless night, every moment I doubted myself had shaped the woman I'd become. She was strong. She was independent. She was compassionate, but uncompromising. And she would never let anyone, no one, dictate her worth again. When my father sent a handwritten note, thanking me for the chance to change, I folded it carefully and placed it next to the bracelet. I didn't feel triumph or gloating. I felt something far rarer: peace. I walked to the window, looking at the city's skyline shimmering under the soft glow of dusk. The lights reminded me of the countless steps I'd taken alone, the moments I'd built something out of nothing. And now, those lights also reflected a new reality, one where my family could step into the world I'd created, but only on the terms we all respected. I whispered to myself, a quiet mantra that had carried me this far. I proved myself not to anyone else, but to the woman I was meant to become. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to prove anything more.